our gut health. Isn't it like luxury for our body to have like healthy gut health?
Yes, the gut is where most of your immune system activity happens. Like they estimate maybe 70%. I don't know. We don't know. Regenerative medicine is not very well regulated. So then you have all these other people doing it, but they're not always doing it the right way. Oh, and there's a lot of like stem cell creams and stem cell this and stem cell that, exosome this, exosome that. And then the problem is the quality isn't always there. And so I think the problem that's
Hello, and welcome to Back into Alignment here. My name is Joarli, your host, and today we are diving into a topic that it creates intersection between science, healing, and longevity with our guest, Dr. Adeel Khan, a pioneer in stem cell therapy and cellular restoration. Dr. Khan came to our podcast 3 years ago, and it happens that both of us now live in Dubai. So I'm so excited to share our journey here. Stay tuned if you are curious about anything about longevity and restoration of your cells. Okay, well, we're here, Dr. Adeel. I'm so excited that we are both converged in a place that is all about innovation, and longevity is top of our mind, especially now that we are looking into chronic diseases that are affecting us. And for me, I was so curious to know about you because I had a big issue with my spine when we connected 3 years ago back in Toronto. And the stem cell therapy definitely helps not only for the spinal health, but actually to heal in an intracellular level. So it makes you glow your face, it makes you repair your hair, your nails, and also to prevent possible chronic diseases. So I'm so excited to have you. Dr. Adeel,
Yes.
Tell me about how have you been? Anything new?
Yeah, it's nice to be here in person. Last time we did it virtually, right? So yeah, there's so much new. I mean, when we chatted 3 years ago, I was focused a lot more on PRP, like the plasma injections, and obviously focusing mainly on sports medicine in Canada. And then I got involved in a clinical trial using stem cells from the own body. And I realized quickly when I started getting into the stem cell world that what everyone is offering are not true stem cells. They're actually fake stem cells. And I can explain more what that means. But basically, a true stem cell is a stem cell that can turn into any cell in your body, meaning it's what's called pluripotent. So you want what are called pluripotent stem cells, but the risk with pluripotent stem cells has always been turning into cancer or tumors or uncontrolled growth. So now we have a pluripotent stem cell that's safe. And that was kind of the first doctor to really talk about that. And that's what I think led to a lot of people becoming very interested.
Yes, you definitely are a pioneer in stem cell therapy and exosomes, peptides, and so much. Here for in Back into Alignment, we just love to know more in detail specific pathogenics or some specific issues that people are presenting now. And as a yoga teacher for the last 20 years, I believe breathwork has been always my number one habit that keeps my health in foundation, my mental health, my emotional health. And for breath work, I actually wanted to start with this, which is sometimes we forget it, and it's kind of like the foundation of our health, about how much we see people vaping, especially in Dubai. We see a lot of people vaping. Maybe they feel like they're not really harming the same way, but I just wanted to see your, perspective on vaping, and also if you have treated vaping, maybe the reduction of the impact or any kind of therapy that you recommend for people that want to stop vaping?
Well, I think with vaping, obviously you can get damage to your lungs, right? And one of the easiest treatments for this is actually nebulized exosomes. So you can nebulize them, like you can wear a mask and you just inhale them, similar to what they do for patients with asthma. They make them nebulize steroids or things to open up their lungs. But the exosomes can actually not just reduce inflammation, they can actually heal too. And it's such an easy therapy to do. And for those that don't know, exosomes are basically the soup that the stem cells grow in. I always like to say the meat, the chicken, if you have chicken soup, the meat part is the stem cells and then the broth is the exosomes. So you can isolate the exosomes, which have no stem cells in there, but they have all the signaling molecules and benefits that stem cells can have as well. They're not as powerful necessarily, but they can still be very useful. And for some people, they may even be safer because they don't want to, not have the risk of having DNA in the body. But we can talk about, the Muse cells and why they're safe even from donors. But basically, nebulization is such an easy way to heal. And we've seen it for patients with asthma, with patients who are smokers and have bronchiectasis or lung damage. So there's a lot of different applications, but I think that's kind of what we would do for it from a regenerative medicine perspective. But then, of course, there's a bigger thing too, right? Why are you vaping in the first place, or why are you drinking in the first place? Why are you doing these bad habits in the first place? And a lot of times it's anxiety, stress, coping mechanisms, right? And so people, so that's what the foundation doesn't change. The foundation is what you said, which is breath work, mindfulness, like building a good relationship with your body, your mind, spending the time to do the inward work to be resilient and make the right choices. And sometimes maybe people have trauma or PTSD, and that's why they're using it. So there's treatments that you can do for that too, right? So.
Totally. I started right away into a topic just because vaping is always in my mind, especially when I'm like in social events. I see
especially
people,
in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's like everywhere.
And in social events, we see happening in offices. And I'm wondering the connection between breath work, like you commented, anxiety, mental health issues, but actually the connection that happens when we actually smoke, which is taking a break and breathe with awareness, even though that we're creating a harmful effect, how this is actually connected to the vagus nerve.
So you mean when you smoke, if the vagus nerve, I mean, is kind of a gateway to your relaxation system, right? So, and the vagus nerve can become dysfunctional, which means your nervous system doesn't recover as well. And one of the best ways to measure this is HRV, heart rate variability, which, you know, with Aura rings, or there's a ring called Gambit. There's different Whoop, like you can use different tools to measure what your HRV is, and then that can give you an indication if your nervous system is not recovering well, and that could be a sign of your vagus nerve being dysfunctional. So there's all these devices now, like vagus nerve stimulators, and there's some companies that are making some pretty sophisticated equipment now that can really work to get your vagus nerve functioning again. Or with what we do, we go right into the vagus nerve. We can actually do an injection using ultrasound machine and guiding a needle right around the vagus nerve and injecting the stem cells, exosomes, peptides, these regenerative molecules to make the vagus nerve work better. And again, it's not just about reducing inflammation, it's about reprogramming and actually changing the signaling permanently. So that's kind of what the idea is about regeneration. And when you said at the beginning, this is about restoration, that's really what it is. It's about, I like to say, reset. Can we reset your body or your cells to the way they were before you had this problem?
Yeah, exactly. I think everything is interconnected. That's what I started with: breathwork, vaping, and vagus nerve, because at the end is, can we tackle the underlying cause of what's happening instead of us using just a Band-Aid therapy where we're just not really hitting the nail on the head. And I feel like in this case, maybe doing a vagus nerve therapy will actually really reduce the anxiety, and maybe in this case, the individual will reduce the use of the vaping.
Exactly. I've had people like that, for example, with drinking or with smoking, they were definitely able to reduce that because their anxiety was less. And then especially if they have a history of trauma or PTSD, then it can be pretty life-changing.
Yeah, no, I imagine that. Coming back into alignment as our podcast, it's been a lot of transformation for the last 10 years, and you've been in the cutting edge of the technologies related to regenerative medicine, traveling the world, Mexico, Panama, places where the regulations are not so restricted, like in Canada and other countries. I wanted to know how has been for you your journey with Eternal Health here in Dubai. I was with you in your launch. I was so proud as Canadian that we do have this courage to do that leap of faith and test other lands that can actually offer different opportunities. I wanted for you to share with us your experience for a year in Dubai as not only as a doctor, but also as an expat.
Yeah, no, it was a difficult decision, obviously, being Canadian, and all my roots are there. But as you said, Dubai is kind of the place for innovation, and the government and just the people here are very open to new technologies, and they want to be the best in different industries. So they're trying to bring the best of the best in different fields. And I think they're trying to do the same with longevity and medicine too. So that's why it's attracting people like me to come here, because we can do things that we can't necessarily do in Canada. And just to give people context, the laws are changing, I mean, all around the world now. Like US, in Florida, they passed a law allowing for stem cells. So this is a new thing. But that just shows you that now these therapies are available in the US. You don't have to go to Mexico anymore. You don't have to go to Panama anymore. And of course, you can do it in Dubai and parts of Europe now as well, and many parts of Asia. So this is just going to keep evolving, and then there's going to be more accessibility to these technologies. So for me, it was obviously difficult leaving everything behind, but at the same time, it's been very rewarding to be able to build up a clinic here, have doctors that have trained, and have other people working here to see patients and to help people on this side of the world. And I think there's a big need for it here too, because obviously regenerative medicine is not very well regulated. So then you have all these other people doing it, but they're not always doing it the right way, meaning they're not using the right type of stem cells or even the right type of PRP or whatever it may be. So there's definitely some nuance to it where you can make things better. And that's kind of what we try to focus on, and educating people, on how to do it the right way.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey. And back into alignment, I use the 3F, which is fun, financial freedom. Third F is fitness. And I think it's important to actually be able to, it's the tripod basically, to be able to integrate this 3F. How much fun are you having while you are working with all of these celebrities?
Yeah, no, it's fun. My favorite part of my job is meeting interesting people, including celebrities, but also just people who've accomplished I find a lot of intelligent people find me, which is really cool, because I think a lot of them are able to, they do their research, they figure out, hey, wait, there's something out there that I can avoid surgery, or I can avoid doing something, taking this pill, or then they're looking for a deeper cause as to why this is happening and getting that fixed. And that's why and so a lot of people who are, I find especially with AI now, people who research quickly come to a conclusion that these technologies are very promising and they're safe. So why not try them first? And that's the reason I think a lot of them find me. But I think, for me, the biggest thing is really helping for a lot of these patients is really giving them hope that there is an option out there that, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do anything for their problem. So I get to have a lot of fun because I'm not only am I meeting cool people, but I'm actually helping people.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the biggest thing, right? Because I can actually make a difference on their lives, and then now because of the work that I've done, I've been, we have clinics all over the world, and now the Muse cells, just to give a little background on them, they were these amazing stem cells that were discovered in 2010, but no one knew about them, and there wasn't much press, and there was probably some scientific suppression. As a long story short, there was another professor named Yamanaka, and he kind of suppressed Professor Dazawa's work, who's a Japanese scientist who discovered Muse cells. So her work just never got known. So no one knew about the Muse cells. So I was the first doctor to really start talking about it outside of Japan. And then I was the one, using these big celebrities like Chris Hemsworth, Kim Kardashian, who are doing the Muse cells. So then people get curious. And now more and more doctors are starting to use the Muse cells because they realize it's better. So I'm hoping the Muse cells will help millions of people, and I can, be proud to be the one to bring that to the world. So that's, to me, is the fun part of all this. And then because of when you help millions of people, ultimately you're going to gain financial freedom because you have a scalable technology or something that you can bring to a lot of people. And then I think, so when you bring value to a lot of people, you're going to, financial freedom just comes as part of that, but that was never my focus. So, and then the fitness part, I've always been into health and working out and bodybuilding. I haven't competed, but I've always been a recreational bodybuilder, natural, and so I love fitness, and I love integrating that as an outlet, but also as something to continuously challenge yourself. I think it's always good to challenge yourself mentally and physically. So mentally, obviously, I can do it with medicine, with different things, problem solving and coming up with solutions. But then physically, doing that, work training or powerlifting or training yourself to
Paddle.
Paddle's not that bad, but lifting heavy weights is not easy.
Well, paddle could say agility, coordination,
it's different,
social interaction. For sure, in Dubai, paddle is big, so you guys know. Now, in terms of the accessibility, like you commented, that now is accessible in many other countries and is getting more popularized. But what about the typical individual on the street can actually have the access to stem cell? How easy? Because I even saw pills, like I saw their kind of forms that are not even injections. So I wanted to know, are we having other forms that are a little bit more accessible for the public?
No, I mean, that's the problem. I think there's a lot of marketing now, and there's a lot of stem cell creams and stem cell this and stem cell that, exosome this, exosome that. And then the problem is the quality isn't always there. And so I think the problem, that's going to be a continuing issue. So for what I recommend to people is generally, if you're going to go to a stem cell clinic, try to go to a clinic where they're doing both. They're involved in research too. They're not just doing commercial, but they're also actively involved in some sort of research, because then it seems more, to me at least, more authentic that they're actually trying to do something that they believe can help people and that they want to do for the right reasons. So in terms of accessibility, I think It's one of those things you still, I mean, if you live in one of those places, obviously you don't have to travel for it, but it's definitely not as accessible as it should be because for the most part you still have to travel. I mean, if you live in Dubai, you don't have to, obviously, or if you
Yeah.
live in Florida, you don't have to, or wherever, Mexico, certain parts. So, I mean, there are obviously places in the world, but if for a lot of people, they have to travel to another city to get these treatments done. So that makes it a bit more challenging. And then obviously the cost is higher too than when you have to travel. But the cost is coming down. Like it has come down significantly just in the last couple of years, and it'll only get cheaper and cheaper as there's economies of scale.
And the government also
Yeah, and
creates
then there
some
might
incentive.
be, well, exactly. I mean, the way I look at it is insurance companies should want to cover this because it actually costs them less. Like, let's say you have a knee problem. Instead of getting a knee replacement, you have arthritis. We can treat it with the Muse stem cells and what's called a hydrogel scaffold. A hydrogel is just like a little gel that keeps the stem cells where they're supposed to stay. So then it can actually regenerate and repair tissue. And instead of doing a surgery, which could cost tens of thousands of dollars, and also the recovery that comes with it, right? Okay. Yes, it may be covered by insurance, but if the same procedure, which is non-invasive, or the same outcome as just an injection can achieve the same outcome, it's much cheaper and much less cost to the system. But the system is obviously designed, the hospitals and the whole pharmaceutical companies and everything, they're all kind of aligned, and so it's hard. But I think eventually we'll get insurance companies to hopefully shift towards covering regenerative medicine. Right now is still, I think it's still too difficult for them, but because there's not enough evidence, I guess. But it's different worldwide too, because there's places like Korea and Japan where you can actually get stem cell procedures covered, or in China too. The government will actually cover it. So, I mean, just shows you a lot of it is still very much, I think, politics.
Yeah, it just takes time. It's just about time. Now, I'm going to take a break here back into alignment just to actually invite everybody to take a break to breathe, because sometimes we forget and we breathe and we actually bring awareness. I actually was remembering that why I started this podcast, and big part is to remember about my little niece, which is an angel. And I feel like sometimes in these moments when we are passing through maybe an absence of some kind of energy or a loss or a grief, that's when we tap into our purpose. So we can tap into our actual mission by actually tapping into pain. And
Yeah.
I actually saw one of your social media posts that you were commenting from your heart that you felt a call to help for preventing diseases when your sister passed away. So I love to hear more about that story, because it tapped my heart when I saw it, because it reminded me that's one of my missions. When my niece was 12 years old and she was diagnosed with leukemia, and she literally passed away in one day. That literally shattered my world. And then it's like, okay, this happened, and it happened that I was the end. So I'm wondering, someone like you that it has so much joy and so much power and so much mission, is that some kind of pivotal point that happened to you in that moment when your sister actually evolved and transcended?
Yeah, no, I think there's a saying called turn tragedy into triumph, and I kind of tried to live by that. And it was kind of like, how do you turn this grief and pain and suffering into something positive? And the only way I could see how, and this was after a lot of self-reflection, reading several books, one of them being Man's Search for Meaning, which is probably a very popular book that many people have heard of, but that's an amazing book by Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor. And essentially I came to the conclusion that the only logical thing to really do would be to use this to do something positive for other people, because I can reflect on the fact that not everyone gets to live a life to their fullest, right? There's people who have chronic illnesses, people who are suffering every day, and people who lose their life for no reason, right? And that's, unfortunately, we both experienced that. And so it's like, why are those people going through that? I think the reason, and I mean, this is just my theory, that I think the reason we get this kind of traumatizing experiences in our life is to use that as a give us perspective to help others. And you can either choose to, so for some people, they might turn to drinking or, other ways to cope with it. And then other people use positivity. And that's, I think that those are the only two choices you really have. So I tried to do something good with it. But then, you quickly realize that people, you meet a lot of people. I've met a lot of, important people and celebrities and stuff like that. And a lot of them have similar type of stories too, or similar things, and they had tough upbringings and things like that, like and then they were able to use that to do something positive in their life. So many people like that. So it's really, so I think that's really a message that people who have gone through a lot can use it in the right way. And yeah, and then it's obviously, it makes you feel like, for me at least, it also helps to keep the memory of the person alive. And obviously knowing that the sequence of events that happened, at least in my life, there's no way, I don't think that would have happened if, obviously I'm very sad. We're always going to be missing my sister, but if that didn't happen, I don't think I'd be where I am either. So I believe it was a lot of it, there's maybe a special energy or force, I don't know what it is, but that there's a lot of coincidences that's happened in my life in the last 10 years that are hard to explain. So
This episode is brought to you by Rejuve, your go-to for tools that support health, energy, and performance. Today, we're talking about the compression boots, perfect for fast muscle recovery and lymphatic drainage. These boots gently compress and release your legs to boost circulation, flush out lactic acid, and reduce soreness. You can learn more about this in the website, and also remember that we have a special code for a special discount. Yes, I mean, I love social media, but sometimes it's not used authentically. So I remember when I saw that post, I was like, okay, this is interesting. I didn't know about this, and actually it reminded me of my own story too. So yeah, that was beautiful. Now, in the case of leukemia, which is a very tough degenerative disease, especially for kids, that is so painful. Like my family and so many families in the world are going through that, recovering and also supporting kids in the process of healing. What are the latest studies related to stem cell therapy and the possible support?
well,
for
yeah,
this?
there's actually, I mean, that's the sad part, I guess, is there are some amazing technologies, but they're just not widely known or accessible. So, for example, there's one called CAR T, which is an engineered cell therapy. So it's a cell therapy. So basically, they take T cells, they genetically modify them to add what's called CAR, which basically allows the T cells to attack the cancer in the body. And it works very well for hematological cancers such as leukemia, and it's only getting more sophisticated, more advanced. And then you can, of course, I think you can combine it right with a holistic approach too, which unfortunately most modern medicine doesn't do, which is they're very focused on chemo, drugs, and surgery as kind of the standard of care. And there's all these other things that can be used. And I think CAR T to me is the most promising one for leukemia at the moment. And now there's other people starting to manufacture it. So it's becoming cheaper. Like there's a group in Turkey, one in Korea. You can get it in the US now, but in the US it's very difficult because it's very expensive and it's not always covered by insurance. And then also they may not allow you to get it unless you have a very specific indication.
So I guess it's just about taking more time. It's all about time, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I think as time progresses, these cell therapies will become more mainstream, but because the results are so promising, and I mean, and the other thing too is like especially when you have leukemia or these kind of severe conditions, why not try something, even if it's still labeled as experimental? I think if there's a lot of these therapies are safe, right? That's a big thing. They're not, and they're worth at least trying and see what happens. I mean, that's my approach, but.
Yeah. I guess Dubai is a great place to be able to study all of these different ways to integrate the solutions. Now, in terms of communication, as we communicate our brain with our body, we create all of these signals that creates the change in our body. What do you think is the biggest gap happening right now? Is it like something that we're not sleeping enough? What is actually the breakdown and the signal that's happening that you notice that will change the actual health for people?
Well, I think it's basically what's called, and there's a theory in medicine called environmental mismatch.
Okay.
So basically, the genes that we have evolved to be in a certain environment, and our modern environment is mismatched to our genes. So, for an example, we're not meant to sit all day. We're not meant to be on our phones all day. We're not meant to be up at midnight and bright lights, right? That's not what our genes evolved for. Ancestral genes that evolved over hundreds of thousands or millions of years. So this is called evolutionary mismatch. So this is really the root cause of chronic diseases. Okay. So if you think about it from that perspective, then you're kind of like, okay, why are we getting sick? It's because we're sitting too much, we're eating too many processed foods, the environment that even the air we breathe and the food we consume, microplastics and toxins and all these things. So those are all compounding. It's hard to say if one is worse than the other, but they're all, I think, a problem. Probably one of the more underappreciated ones is environmental toxins, because people don't realize these things accumulate over time. So for example, microplastics, your body doesn't really have a mechanism to get rid of them. And they've done studies now where it's like people with Alzheimer's have 10 times more microplastics in their brain than people who don't. And then all these chronic diseases are being linked to this pollution and things like that. And so if you can lower that toxic burden, and we're not talking about like a tea detox or something, we're talking real technology that can remove this stuff, then that's what's called subtractive medicine. So subtractive medicine is subtracting, right? You're removing the bad stuff. So there's two technologies, one called in-use pheresis, which has been in Europe for over 10 years, and it's now we have in Dubai as well. And then it's going to be in the US soon, hopefully. And then there's one called Clarify, which is another company. But both of them basically have the same principle, which is they have a very special filter that can trap a lot of these toxins and then just return your blood back to you. So it's just removing the bad and keeping the good. Because there's something called therapeutic plasma exchange, which you may have heard of, TP. You know, you see those big bags where plasma, but that's removing all your plasma. So you remove the bad and good, which isn't as ideal.
Okay, well, we're learning so much here. The microplastic is just crazy. Like, I think we can ingest one credit card
you see that?
size per year, I believe, in our body. It's like, okay, wow. I guess the first thing is to reduce the use of plastic bottles, which is still, I see it a lot still.
Yeah, I think it's unavoidable. I mean, you can obviously drink from glass, but then you're still going to get exposed to it. Cosmetics, clothes, even the air has microplastics now. So, I mean,
essence.
You can't get it. Yeah, you can't
fragrances.
You can't avoid it. So I think it's just, you have to just measure, you just have to do it, measure it, and then deal with it and do these. I think eventually these kind of machines, that clean your blood, they will eventually be standard of care, but that'll probably take like a decade or two. But eventually everyone will be doing them, I think. But right now it's just something that the people who are more in the cutting edge of medicine understand the importance of it.
Yes, 100%. There is so much, and I think this medicine is just going to be leading for the next decade or more, because it's AI, and I imagine AI is connected to also regenerative medicine.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can share with us, because this podcast for me, it has been a pivot. But we were doing only spinal health for 5 years. I was just like so niche into it, and then I realized there is so much other things happening. Now I'm blending it, but I imagine that healthcare is also incorporating AI in the studies to accelerate the solutions.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how have you seen this? Because in Dubai, we have a ministry of AI.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit
here.
of this.
Yeah. Well, there was actually a breakthrough a couple months ago using AI. They were able to figure out how to reprogram cells. So with a better technology than Yamanaka. So Yamanaka, I mentioned earlier, he's a scientist that came up with what are called Yamanaka factors, or these 4 transcription factors that can make an old cell young again. So it's pretty cool if you think about it. It's like, okay, you can just press the reset button and you can make yourself young again. Imagine if so that's called epigenetic reprogramming. It's reprogramming the cell and the instructions for that cell. But the problem with those cells was that they can cause cancer or tumors. And so that's why they were more research use. So,
and this is because anything can be reproduced.
Because it's moving it back to embryonic state.
Okay.
So basically, an embryonic stem cell can grow uncontrollably. So
anything, good or bad, could be.
Yes, exactly, and that's the problem with what are called the Yamanaka stem cells. So that's why they're still being used in research and not really clinically. But there was this AI that scientists were using, and they were essentially figured out how to do the reprogramming that apparently was like 50x more effective and safer. So, and that was just using AI. So it's coming out with all these breakthroughs. Obviously, they have to be clinically validated and tested. But the point is, the theory, the basic science stuff, is being now done by AI. And even I think clinical trials and all these other things are going to be greatly expedited thanks to AI. So it's only going to, and it's once quantum computing and all this kind of takes off, then I think we're really going to see what AI can do, and especially like over the next few years. It'll probably make most doctors not very useful, unfortunately, because obviously a lot of doctors' job is pattern recognition. It's doing the same thing, you know, especially if you're a radiologist or dermatologist, you're recognizing the same things over and over. So those things will be replaced very quickly by AI, because AI can, and they've actually done research on this too, where they had three groups. They had AI with doctors, like a doctor who could use AI for help, and then the doctor on their own, and then the AI on their own. And this was for, I can't remember exactly what topic it was for, but it was for some, you know, diagnostics and treatment plan. And it turned out the group AI on its own was the best, like better than doctors with AI. So that just shows you what AI can do now, and it's only going to get better. So there's going to be less mistakes, less errors, more consistency. So I think I can only see that replacing a lot of people in medicine, unfortunately, but that's just, it's better. It's probably going to be better for humanity, I guess.
Right. But I imagine the precision to place a needle on the spine.
No, that'll take,
You need
I
a
think that's still
human.
I think that's still many years away.
I will still
That's me.
select a human.
That's why my job is secure. But
I imagine,
but
yeah.
I think a job, like I was saying, those pattern recognition jobs,
Yeah.
like radiologists and stuff, will be replaced pretty quickly.
Like analysis of data
Yeah,
is going to
exactly.
be more done automated,
Yeah, exactly.
saving time
Yeah.
and cost. That makes sense. For financial freedom here on the Fs that we were chatting about fitness and fun. For financial freedom, we are looking always in the outside superficial areas of our bodies, but then we forget the actual base. And I remember we had a full podcast. So I was so lucky to have Dr. Khan for 4 hours last time. And we chatted about everything. And we dedicated 1 hour for gut health. And we haven't talked about gut health, which is also so fundamental to create emotions, connection with our body,
Oh, it's
in a
so
detailed
important.
cellular level. So I'm wondering about, for financial freedom, a lot of people are looking into the luxury next, but what about our gut health? Is it like luxury for our body to have like healthy gut health?
Yes, the gut is where most of your immune system activity happens. Like they estimate maybe 70%. I don't know. We don't know the number for sure, but let's just say the majority of how your immune system is influenced is because of the gut. It's not just the number of immune cells in there, but it's the metabolites and what are called like postbiotics, like, you know, like small chain fatty acids and other things like that, which affect other cells in the body and immune cells. So because for people to understand, the immune system is by far the most complicated thing in the human body, but it's also likely the most important when it comes to understanding disease and aging. So if we can understand your immune system and keep your immune system healthy, then we can help with so many diseases, from depression to neurodegenerative to autoimmune diseases to cancer, everything, diabetes, doesn't matter. Everything is affected by the immune system. So this is why what you were saying is so important, because the gut, what happens is you get an imbalance, right, in the gut bacteria. And this is called gut dysbiosis. And there's so much interesting research, like, you know, there's Dr. Sabine Hazan, who's a gastroenterologist. Like, she found, for example, the COVID virus and the vaccine actually made people's bifidobacteria in their bodies decrease significantly, which is an important microbe. And so that just shows you the implications of things like that. But now we're starting to understand which microbes are missing that you need to have, or what needs to be there for an ideal balance. And so we can replace them now. There's technology which you can do. There's called fecal microbial transplant, which you can do directly through colonoscopy, but now you can do them through pills, which is really cool. So you don't need to, you just take pills for like 10 days, and it can help to reset your gut, so to speak, and bring in the right microbes. And in the group we're working with, actually, because we're offering this now, what the group we're working with has actually treated over 10,000 patients, but they're doing the largest clinical trial in the world right now for depression. So they're using the FMT pills for depression. Like, how cool is that? And they're getting amazing results. So that just shows you how important how the gut affects the brain. And then they're using it for autism too and autoimmune conditions, but it just shows you the power of the gut and affecting the whole body.
Yeah, no. Depression for me is something that affects us all, and at least once. And definitely having a proper gut health regulated, and also the vagus nerve. I think those two are under
Exactly.
kind of forget
That's
about.
why we treat both those things. But like,
Yeah.
obviously there's the basics, right? Like prebiotics, which is fiber, eating lots of fiber, right? And trying to have at least, at least like, depending on your body weight, but like 30, 40 grams of fiber a day. But most people don't get that, right? And then, there's also the fermented foods, right? You can eat kimchi, kefir, sauerkraut, try to eat that on a daily basis. So there's basic stuff you can do to maintain your gut health. But again, modern society with stress, with processed foods, with just everything, most people have gut dysbiosis. Like most people have an imbalance in their bacteria, and you can find out very quickly. You can just do a microbiome test, and you can see if you're missing certain tests. Like I just did mine a few weeks ago, and I've realized I'm missing so many bugs. So I'm doing I'm actually doing the FMT this weekend. So I'm excited to to help my gut.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that surprised me.
Yeah, yeah,
But it
yeah.
happens, right? Sometimes we forget it. Now, we are in Dubai where we see very flashy cars and all these luxury potential items. But what about our health? Don't you find people just keep buying more luxury, but then they forget about the luxury for body? I'm wondering if you have seen more of a growth of population coming to you.
There's a
Be
shift happening.
curious.
There's a shift happening for sure. Like more and more people, they rather spend money on longevity than buy like another Rolex or something, Like that's just the shift that's starting to happen, I think, culturally, not just in Dubai, but everywhere. So a lot more people rather invest in their health and spend their money. And I think there's research on this too. I remember reading that people over age of 65, they're willing to spend up to 80% of their savings on health. So people are willing to put most of their money that they have into health as they get old. Because I mean, if you don't have your quality of life or your health when you're in 70s or 80s or 90s and so on, then it's not you can't enjoy life. And that's the whole point of the treatments that we do.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you don't have to wait at that age. I would just start doing
No,
now.
prevention is the best.
For sure.
Of course, prevention is the best. And that's where AI is becoming really important too, because all these diagnostic tests are becoming really advanced. And then you can individualize and personalize treatment plans as well. And prevent, I think, like something like cancer, it takes 10 years for a single cancer cell to turn into a sizable tumor that can be measured on MRI. So 10 years. So imagine if you could detect the signal that the cancer cell sends when it's a single cell or just like a few cells. And that's where this technology is headed. So eventually we'll be able to hopefully just prevent cancer altogether. I think that's where the future we're going towards.
Yeah, that's much of a dream. I hope it happens faster than 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, because our body is our temple, is actually a rental home that we're renting, we don't know for how long. If we talk about health, what do you think will be number one habit that you will be practicing yourself in 2026?
Well, I think for me, one of the biggest things has been gratitude journals. I know it sounds kind of silly, but it's a reminder, because especially in Dubai and places like this where it's like ultra luxury and the best this, the best that, you can lose perspective, right? And then I think it's just important to remember that happiness is derived mainly from the quality of your relationships, meaning you should be grateful for your kids, your family, your friends, all that stuff. And then I think realizing that whatever brings you peace, right, makes you at peace is the most important thing. So those are the things I'm trying to focus on. And I think gratitude journal is one way to bring you more peace and calmness in your life and reminder of perspective as well.
Yeah, for sure. Gratitude gives us also the moment to be present
Yes.
right now.
Yeah.
Because we cannot change the past. We only can be present and imagine and create the future. And in Dubai, a lot of changes are happening. And I'm wondering, you as a new expat and actually adapting so fast, project that you're working and you want to share with us so we can follow you along?
I have many projects, but the one that's, I guess, kind of interesting or exciting is we're working on this hair stem cell cloning technology. So which is really cool because people basically, I'm sure you've heard of hair transplants, right? Where they take hair from the back of your head and then they implant it one by one. But there's only so many hair follicles they can get. So this technology, basically what it does is you take one cell, right? And then you use reprogramming, like we talked about the Yamanaka stuff, and you turn it back into a baby hair stem cell. And then there's ways to basically make that so that you have a baby hair stem cell, right? It's called iPSC-derived hair dermal papillae cell. It's a long mouthful,
Okay.
but does it say baby hair stem cell?
Yes.
Yeah. So baby hair, you take that one stem cell that can now program to turn into a hair follicle, and you can grow as much as you need, like unlimited, and then you can just implant them one by one. So that's the technology I'm working on with like a partner, and that's like an exciting one. Hopefully by 2027. But they'll basically be like a cure for baldness. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, wow. That's promising because girls, we all complain here in Dubai that we're losing hair. So this is a big one. This is the very first topic of a woman moving to Dubai. I'm losing my hair. I don't know what's happening. So this is a good one. I believe it's also the changes on the environment, the food, nutrition, stress levels, air quality. There's so many other factors.
Exactly.
But having a solution, like you said, much better than just transplanting one by one.
Yeah.
This one sounds promising. And I just wanted to close this beautiful conversation with your knowledge that you have learned in the year of Dubai. If you wouldn't come here, where would you be?
If I did not come here, I would probably be in Singapore, maybe. Yeah. Okay. But the reason we did end up going to Singapore was because you can't actually do stem cells there.
Oh.
You can do the old stem cells, but not like the better cutting edge ones. So that was the reason why we chose Dubai. It was basically I had to find a place where I could do where we could do stem cells, and also has good taxes and things like that, right? And safety obviously is a big one too. And so there wasn't that many options left, and Dubai kind of had all the check boxes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Singapore will love you, but if it's not possible for expanding your expertise, it wouldn't make sense. I actually live in Singapore. It's a beautiful place.
Oh yeah.
But it is different than Dubai. Dubai definitely offers more open space.
They're more progressive here.
For sure.
Yeah.
We're happy to have you here. So please stay with us in Dubai. Keep sharing with us your passion and your knowledge. And I'm looking forward to see you growing. And if you are actually curious about where to find Dr. Khan, he's in Eternal Health here in Jumeirah in Dubai. He also has a constant posting social media, what he's doing in his channel in Instagram. And also you just pass on the clinic. He will be potentially there. You can book a consultation with him. Totally recommended from Canada. And especially if you have a spinal health like I do. Definitely it will transform you, not only for spinal health, but like your whole body will change. And so excited to have young people, talent people in Dubai expanding and growing. I love it. Thank you so much, my friends. I hope you guys enjoy it. Remember to like and comment and share with your friends, especially if you know someone will get benefits from this episode. Thank you.
If you like this, smash the subscribe button and click the bell so you never miss a video.